Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I am your host and keeper, the Harry Channel, and with me tonight are minions Sora Luna,
Good evening.
Geodes,
Hello.
Serenity Star 13,
Hello.
DrFunctional,
The minions.
very, very
And
nice,
Struck.
thank you, and Coffee Struck, yeah, exactly, and SkepTock,
I'm talking to the seller right now. I'll get it.
Skep,
Are you muted?
Hi, everybody.
Yay!
yay.
You can hear the
Delayed.
annoyance.
Delayed gratification.
We have so much stuff to talk about tonight, it's pretty crazy. Does anybody have anything quick they want to share before we dive right into it?
Honk honk.
Oh, we're going to get to Hong Kong.
Nah, I'm good.
No?
I'm good. You've got a pretty meaty show tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot
Mhm.
going on. Tulsi Gabbard said one thing. This isn't in the show plan, but I was talking to Serenity before the show, where basically she was talking about how Ukraine really isn't a democracy. So when we talk about defending democracy, we're talking about defending a regime that shuts down newspapers, silences opposition. You know, the good old hits.
Yes.
Anybody have any quick thoughts about that? I mean, leaving aside the fact that I don't personally trust Tulsi Gabbard, not entirely sure why.
Ditto.
You
Is she right about this, or is she wrong about this one particular point?
Why
Little
does that
bit of
mean
both.
the people shouldn't get defended
Yeah, that's
if it
kind
goes
of
to that?
Well, they're saying the criteria for defending them is we have to defend democracy, but if it's not a democracy, then our criteria is false.
Then who the
We'd
fuck
have to
ever
use a
said
different
that?
criteria.
I don't
Sorry,
think the
don't you
people. No, it's
Sorry.
fine. It's fine. We're all chomping at the bit to get started here.
Yeah.
I don't think that defending somebody or an entity that is democratic is at all relevant. If you have a certain level of morality and want to combat the, just to use an analogous term, the big evils of the world, fascism, blah, 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 authoritarianism, all that, then it doesn't matter who you're defending, rather why you're defending them. I'm not using that as sort of a means to say, yes, we, the West, predominantly the United States, should defend them, like physically defend them. But if you stand by your morals, your convictions, by what you stand by, it doesn't matter who you're protecting. It's like freedom of speech. I don't agree with what person X is saying, but I'll be damned if I let anybody censor them.
Well, we quite literally can't protect the entire world. I've said this in the past. There is nothing we can do about Hong Kong. Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
We can posture all we want, and honestly, I'm not sure there's anything we can do about Taiwan. We've had that discussion as well too.
Yeah,
So we must have some criteria by which we pick and choose which people we defend and which ones we don't. And if the claim is that we believe in democracy, but they're not actually a democracy, we need to come up with a different reason. It might just be because we don't want Putin running around invading other countries because it sets a bad example if he goes unchallenged. That's fine. But I think Tulsi has half a point here. Anybody who's claiming we're doing it because we're preserving democracy, is it really a democracy?
Yeah, but it's just I agree she has like a half a point, but it seems like and I feel the same way about her that you do, Harry. So this is most likely my own feelings toward her coloring it.
Yeah.
So we're just going to state that right out the gate. But it seems like one of those gotchas that one of those passive-aggressive assholes will make, where you're kind of like, got me. But at the same time, you're like, you didn't really, because our own government does the same thing when it tells people to not say certain things. So while we may not have shut down newspapers, there's some people in the government who may have tried to shut down the people for having a wrong opinion, air quotes. So no room to talk, sweetheart.
Well, we actually sort of, in a lot of ways, we almost have shut down newspapers. We've censored them so heavily that at least we've sort of temporarily stopped them from publishing stories. You could argue, I mean, of course, we're a republic. not really
Yeah.
a democracy anyways. I mean, it's a fine technical point.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
You know,
can
can
definitely wrap my head around the argument. I mean, I can understand the Russian position on this. I'm not taking sides with the Russians.
Yeah.
And I think we often pick and choose these fights based on what we think we can do. It's like
Yeah.
if we think we have enough juice to do something to help, we do. And when we know we don't, we just complain and stamp our feet, and we know we can't do anything, so we sort of step back. What were you going to say, Skep?
If you look at what she actually said, I assume this is the quote you're talking about.
Yeah, and I
She
put a
said-
link in the chat for everybody.
Oh, okay. Anyway, she says, I've looked at this carefully, Tucker, and I have yet to find any benefit that a political leader has used or could use to justify this to the American people. All you hear is like, well, we have to defend democracy. We have to defend this democratic country of Ukraine. But as you know very well, this current Ukrainian president shuts down and arrests political opposition, throws them in jail, shuts down TV stations that are critical of him, sounding a great deal like the Democratic Party, by the way.
Yep.
And I have a hard time seeing how President Biden or anyone can say with an honest face we are defending democracy. It's not. Defending democracy has nothing to do with any of this. Okay, this is what they call realpolitik. This is one of those situations you have to look at what is really going on. Putin badly wants the Ukraine for many reasons. He wants to own the Ukraine for many reasons. There are many Russians living in the Ukraine. There are ethnic Russians living in the Ukraine. They speak. They think of themselves as Russian. A lot of the eastern Ukraine really feels quite Russian. And so what's in the back of Putin's mind as he comes down, he says, this is practically Russia anyway. We're just going to, take it back. Of course, Ukraine hates that because they have their power mad oligarch, in charge, and they like being, not basically benefiting from Russia being bad Leroy Brown defending the area and not having to do much about it. They want the status quo, and they want their territorial sovereignty. So we need to decide if that basket of interests is worth what we would spend on its defense. What is the downside if a different oligarch is in charge of the Ukraine for us? How will that change things?
I honestly don't know. I imagine in a situation like this, what would Henry Kissinger do?
Oh,
because
Kissinger would have done. I'll promise you. I'll tell you exactly what he would have done.
Okay, what would Kissinger have done?
Kissinger would have cut a better deal. He would have said, "So you want Ukraine? Doable, possibly. Here's what it's going to cost you." Mm-hmm. He would have laid it out just like that, because that's the way he did business. He realized that all this shit was transactional, even on the largest scale, and it is. At the end of the day, Russia wants something, and it will have consequences for the world. Things have costs, things have value. It's just a function of speaking realistically about it. Biden should have gone to Russia and said, okay, we're not going to let you just get away with this, but if you'd like to get away with this without, with only having your wallet skinned and without killing a bunch of people, here's a way we could do it. And you have smart people draw up, an agreement that will take care of all the people all the parties who need to be taken care of. I'm sorry, I know you didn't mean to go this long on this, but I just
That's
wanted
fine.
to say
Don't worry about it.
that everybody is acting like there are these lofty principles at play. That's crap. Who cares which oligarch is in charge of that part of the world. I don't give a shit. I really don't care.
And I think
And-
that's the point, honestly,
and-
because I mentioned Kissinger because you brought up realpolitik.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his baby, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Exactly. And it'd be good to go back and look at Kissinger sometime, not to idol worship all of the ancestors. Because, I mean, we could just spend all day talking about how awesome Reagan and William F. Buckley were, but that's not going to be interesting for anybody but us.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. But I
Moving
think
on.
the point is I stopped you because you ended at exactly the best point. Honestly, I think that's exactly where we should leave it.
Yeah.
I think you made the point far better than I was going to. Thank you. So moving on. Let's see, technical excellence as always. We need to change the video camera. Go to here. Here. That's the wrong article. Of course, see, technical excellence all the time. So, another school teacher in California has gone off her rockers, or has actually talked about a district that's gone off its rockers, this time in Santa Barbara. And I know this is going to come as a shock to you. They've gone full on CRT under the hood. I know.
No.
And what they've done is here in Santa Barbara is they've put all of this teacher information about Black
Wait.
Lives Matter and everything else behind a lovely paywall.
Culturally responsive
Yeah,
Curriculum.
yeah. Yeah, every
Oh.
month has a theme. There's Cesar Chavez Day, American Heritage. Sorry, that's Muslim American Heritage Month, Advocacy Month, Latinx Heritage Month, because of course, that 2%'s driving the.
I
boat
do
here.
like how Hispanic is crossed out. Like
Yeah.
that. That is.
They've
Okay.
unpersoned Hispanics.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Those are the Republican Hispanics.
yeah, they don't
The,
count.
the progressive Latinx.
Yeah, like that guy who
are-
runs what is it, Goya Foods?
I love the fact that
Exactly.
Latinx Heritage Month is September 15th, October 15th.
Well, they don't.
not
They're
even-
not in school at the beginning of it, so
I know, but it's just funny that it's not an actual month as we know it. It's just 30 days
yeah.
in it. So it's just, I thought that was funny.
Juneteenth. Well, Juneteenth is just a single day.
Oh God, Juneteenth
It's-
is such a bunch of bullshit.
Juneteenth should just be like Kwanzaa Eve or something. It'd make more sense.
So does that mean that because June is LGBTQIA plus Pride Month,
Hmm.
are they the ones who get shortchanged having Juneteenth stuck in there, or is Juneteenth getting shortchanged by having them overclipped by a whole month of LGBTQIA plus?
Well, that's
God,
a
shut
good
up.
question, and I don't know. But this is
She looks
precisely
smug as hell.
the stuff that they say that they're not going to do, but then they hide it behind a paywall.
What
and they
white
just teach the
colleagues
stuff
need
anyway.
to know, is that what it said?
What white colleagues need to understand.
Okay.
How white colleagues can do better.
Oh, I love this stuff. It's terrifying.
There's there's a whole argument in my state over Hispanic versus Native American versus what they like to refer to as mestizos.
Hmm.
Oh
Uh,
God,
it's-
mestizos.
And it reminds me of that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we don't need to go over all of this. I just wanted to point out that yes, yet another part of California is being stupid. We all know this. But this is an interesting video.
Oh, look,
Geodes,
Elizabeth
did you put
Warren.
the link in the chat?
Yeah, I got the video in there already.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. So you guys can check this out in your copious free time. It's actually pretty chilling. And this woman who spilled the beans on all this, the teacher, was on, I think, with Laura Ingraham
Probably
yesterday.
lost her job.
Yeah, I figured this would. I actually, supposedly, so far she hasn't lost her job.
Then they haven't sent out the hit squad yet.
Oh yeah, they'll find some. They'll put some tape together of her using the N-word repeatedly or something. I don't know what it's going to be.
Oh yeah.
They'll find something in her past that they can use to torpedo her. 'Cause
Or
she's-
mysteriously, a child will come forward and say she touched them, and it'll be the one time they actually go after a female teacher for that.
Will it be that same professor that testified against Brett Kavanaugh?
Probably.
Probably. I think Christine
Baby
Blasey
voice
Ford.
and all.
Yeah, exactly.
I was at a party. Oh, just eat me.
So, to the bridge. A
You actually
convoy
need to go to the
protest applauded by right-wing media as a freedom protest is an economic and security issue now. The Ambassador Bridge Link constitutes 28% of annual trade movements between U.S. and Canada. slash the tires, empty gas tanks, arrest the drivers, and move the trucks. She does not understand the order in which these things would need to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of need to arrest
Does-
them first because
does she understand how trucks work?
I don't think she really does. I think she knows the wheels
What
on the
even
bus go
are
round
truck
and round,
guys?
but that's about it. No,
Got
well, setting
excited.
aside the problem that she sucks at logistics,
Mhm.
I was thinking about this again, trying to be brutally fair and come up with new ways to annoy you guys to make you talk. And this is me somewhat playing devil's advocate, but just about 50%. I know that if this was a different movement, if this was BLM or people demanding world socialism or some other cause that they felt motivated about, and they blocked this bridge, and they basically decided to shut down like a big piece of commerce. And I'm not talking about the people in the trucks near the Capitol building, right? I think making yourself seen and heard is one thing, but actually interfering with other people's ability to do things they want to do is a slightly different thing, blocking this bridge. Do you guys have a problem with it? Because I kind of feel like we may be being influenced by the fact that we agree with these people. Because if the situation was different, I don't think we'd think it's acceptable to block this bridge.
The difference is that if it was those other groups, the bridge would be on fire and destroyed, and they wouldn't be able to use it.
I think because BLM got away with a bunch of shit they shouldn't get away with, there's this thought that it's only fair that these guys get away with it now too.
Which
And-
I kind of agree with. It's like
No,
if you're
and
gonna,
the
like-
argument is because we're at war, you know, the two sides are at war. Why should we handicap ourselves when the other side doesn't do the same thing? I understand all those arguments, but I
have a
would much
completely
rather
different
see
take on this.
I would much rather see nobody block the bridge. If you want to protest and set up outside Parliament, that's absolutely fine. But if they want to stay home and do a work stoppage and say we refuse and other truckers stop in solidarity, that's fine. But they're preventing other people from exercising their individual rights by blocking this bridge. And that's where my offense comes in. Go ahead, Skep.
These guys are in a position to really do something amazing, and that is to come back and say, you know what, this is causing you pain, so we've made our point, we're going to move on now. But if you show us that you didn't get the message, we're going to be back. You might want to think about that. That's what, if they did that, they could walk away and it would be like John Wayne riding off into the sunset. It really would put a better spin on all of this. I can't understand why someone isn't doing that. They think they're going to give up power, but they don't really have power. What they're doing is becoming enough of an annoyance where at some point Canada will take serious action against these guys, and it's not going to be funny. If they really do go after them and start towing these guys away, people are going to get killed. When that happens, then the fun's over. Okay, nobody will win that. The people who are in charge of this protest could win the game. I mean, Trudeau handed them the ball and said, "There's the end zone. Go for it." That's all they have to do is walk across the line. In my
I actually disagree with that.
Yeah.
No, I expected this would get some conversation going. Why don't we go to functional first and
Yeah,
then
go
go to
functional.
Serenity?
Okay. Well, first of all, there's a distinct difference on BLM versus people who've been under the thumb of government for at least 2 years worth of nonsensical lockdowns and mandates. One, we don't have that same history of what BLM is protesting. Not in our history, not in modern times. We do, and I'll draw the comparison towards because Pincalo brought this to my attention. The native tribes blockading fuel pipelines, etc. And I said, okay, it took some time to process that, and I'm like, okay, that's a fair argument. However, once again, to the message, the core of the message, a small fringe minority in the case of the native protests of oil pipelines. It was, in fact, the diminutive minority of just basically activists. A lot of tribes, a lot of elders are making money off of this. They're getting these deals where they can be on the government teat, and that's appealing to get all this money. Get off the government teat to get on their own private contracts with these fuel companies for the. So the part of I agree with Skep is that, yeah, maybe it is time right now to say, you know what, we're going to go away. But if this shit keeps happening, you know, get the message or don't. You know, it's now up to you. I don't think that I think the government of Canada, provincial or federal, would be shooting themselves in the foot by taking violent action. It would escalate things. There would be a retaliation, and as much as I'm loath to say it, I think that that's a good thing. I think that that's probably the best option, because back to our first topic of fighting for, you know, democracy, and we're using democracy as a sort of catch-all term for Western values. And if we're not going to fight for Western values, for freedoms in our own fucking country, then we don't deserve those values and those freedoms. We deserve to have our necks crushed by the boot of Big Daddy government. Because if we're not willing to fight, then sorry, you don't deserve those rights.
Okay, let me explain where I'm coming from. Skep is absolutely right about the tactic. It may work. And you're right about that too. I mean, it may work. That's not what I'm thinking about here. When I think about people tearing down statues, well-organized mobs deciding, doesn't matter what the democracy came up with. We're just going to do this because it's the right thing. We're going to tear down these monuments, and you're not going to stop us. An organized 5-10% of the population. Or it's now we're at 10%. The Bolshevik Revolution, 10%. It wasn't the people who decided to overthrow the czars. It was a very small, organized group of people who decided to do that. I don't see how a democracy, self-government, works when a small group of organized people can just decide, no, we don't care what the plurality of people want. We're just going to force a certain thing to happen. That's my concern. I just don't, in my mind, logically, I'm having trouble kind of squaring this circle. My gut understands that what these people are doing is just, right? I get it. But my head can't quite understand logically, ethically, legally what the distinction is between this and other things that I've seen happen. And I should probably throw it to Serenity because it's her turn and I'm talking still.
I'm with you on that in a little bit, but my thing with this is that Trudeau has already shown any leader has already shown their willingness, because I think it was also the Alberta one, they basically threatened to take these people's kids or go after them in such a way to take the kids or make their lives hard or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so far, at least everything I've heard, and I've looked at every different, even that tweet says it was only a temporary close. Now I understand that it was still detrimental to some people, but they didn't close it down the entire day. It didn't have to be clean, so it didn't have to be shut down for a week or whatever.
I actually don't take an issue with a temporary closure. I think that's just civil disobedience. That's fine. Yeah. I'm talking about permanently shutting it down to force somebody to do something extra democratically.
And that's the thing. I get that too. It's just when it comes down to it, Trudeau won't even listen to anybody. He has walked off the floor every single time they try to question him on anything. He just leaves. He doesn't even care. He doesn't try to talk to anybody. He doesn't try to do his fancy, I'm going to speak in French now, crap, nothing. He just leaves. Yep. That's not the attitude of someone who can actually be, I don't like using the word bargained with, but we're going to go with it, bargained with in this kind of situation. He's being a petulant child, and the truckers are being a little bit too, but they seem to be a little bit more controlled than him. He's basically, his press conferences have basically been the equivalent of him stamping his feet going, why won't you listen to me? Go home. You can't, just like with a little kid, you can't give in to that. Because the minute you walk away, he's just going to get worse. And Assassin, I agree with Assassin Gray said in chat, he's just going to go, see, I am a great leader. I made them leave. He's not going to take it as a loss.
Yeah. And so
he's
will
not.
Stadia.
I understand the political calculus of it. I mean, I'm only talking about a very narrow point. I guess the question is when and under what circumstances is it okay to just say enough is enough? I would, if we don't get things the way we want them, we're just going to shut it all down. That's the thing. I mean, at what point is it okay in a democracy just to decide that a small organized group can just shut it all down? It has nothing to do with whether they're right or wrong. They believe that they're right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you say it's whether they have a just cause or not, then, well, how do you determine that? Do you have some issue where it goes to the court and then the court decides whether it's going to be disbanded or not? Because you know how poorly that system's going to work.
It's one of those, as far as because I haven't read up on the supposed leader of the group, but it's mostly because I think 90% of the truckers are vaccinated. It's just they want the mandates gone. They want the mandates gone. They want the proof of vax gone. And once that happens, as far as I know from the way they've talked, they're done.
Yeah.
And they want it permanently gone. Not this, because there's already been talk behind the scenes of them intentionally putting laws through to make it so they can just enact this stuff again later. They want it permanently gone. You do not restrict, unless it's a time of war, I guess is the only thing, restrict their ability to go, no, I don't want a vaccine because people aren't dropping dead. Like, you don't get to tell me, or you don't get to tell me I have to show a piece of paper. We're not Germany. It's the fact that they keep locking funds down. They're literally making it so they can't even get to their own funds. But
oh yeah, he's absolutely terrible. He shouldn't be prime minister.
But
it's me. And I'm in terms of what really shocks me and makes me sad is the fact that the press in Canada seems to lack it lacks any kind of independence.
Yeah.
Because they're just regurgitating the bullshit that the French Canadian government is spewing.
Yeah.
Talking about all the things that supposedly the protesters have done, and they haven't done anything. They haven't killed anybody. They haven't desecrated any monuments. They haven't looted any stores. I mean, they've been absolutely fine as far as their behavior goes. But the press is just all in, just saying whatever the government wants them to say. It's really shocking.
Isn't that sort of answering your question in that it's been peaceful? There hasn't been any violence towards people or tearing down of people's property or burning of people's property, public or private. I mean, that's a pretty clear metric for me in my mind. There is nuance within that. There's definitely nuance within but I think that once you get to the point where, well, there's just uncontrolled violence of a certain level, there's no legitimacy. Then yes, you can go and should go for the I hate to use the term, but for the public good, public safety, to shut it down, because these people are acting as you said it earlier, a mob and not as a protest.
I'm only talking about the narrow point of permanently blocking that bridge until they get their way. If it's temporary, I don't care. And I'm not talking about the protesters outside of the Capitol building, because, you can go around them. It may be inconvenient to be honked at all night, but I mean, they're not stopping the country from working. They're just saying, here's our message, and we're not going to shut up until you at least talk to us. And they're not even negotiating. The government, as far as I know, is not negotiating at all with these people.
They did.
Oh, they did.
They tried to come to the table. It was basically, okay, we're going to come to the table and negotiate, but you have to give up all the things you're standing for right now, and then we'll continue. So they basically released a letter. I don't have it available, but basically says, I, the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, will meet with your designated leaders if, and for a time no longer than X amount, and you will get 1 minute for every person who is unvaccinated to get the jab. You will get 5 minutes for every, stupid stuff like that. Just like, if you do what you're fighting against, we will give you some time. I'm not familiar with this specific bridge, but I know that the one here in Ontario was shut down and not blockaded by the truckers. They were simply trying to move through, and with sheer volume, it was just impossible for anyone to get through. And I mean, that's just on a Saturday afternoon. When you have this many people intentionally going there to try to jam up the works, then the authorities come in, blockade things, shut down the border checks, blah blah blah, and then they're creating the problem that they're now saying is the big problem. Oh, well, it's shutting down all trade. Well, maybe you shouldn't have blockaded them. Well, maybe you shouldn't have stopped people from bringing people gas because they're stuck running their trucks in the middle of standstill traffic, and now they can't move because they're out of gas. They've been... It's just escalation of the worst kind, and one side is definitely handling this at every turn in the wrong way. Don't really want to see our trade being completely and utterly shut down. We're actually now, Elwin and I are actually now seeing the effects on the store shelves. But I mean, I'm of the mind that, you know what, I'm willing to starve to death if that means that these mandates get lifted. That's how strong my personal convictions are. I'm not gonna let Elwin starve or the cat starve, but you know, that's another story. So I don't know particularly about the Ambassador Bridge. I know it's huge, but I do know of what's been going on at other locations, and it seems like it's not really their fault. The movement's fault.
Fair enough. Did you want to say anything about this, Sora or Geodes, before? And I think Skep's been very, very good. I want to give him a shot at this when you guys are done, just in case he wants to follow up.
Talking about letting a small group kind of shut you down like this. They did nothing when we had other protests here that barricaded access to hospitals. Okay, so like this was protests against vaccinations, against mask mandates, against everything last year. So prior to truck convoy, prior to all this. And at no point did they bring anyone here to stop and say, okay, this has stepped beyond freedom of expression, has now gone into impeding the health and security of everybody around you. You're also blocking access to a bunch of things. They didn't do anything then, let alone previous protests. So starting now, I mean, they've got no precedent yet about stopping these kind of protests, right? And that's probably what it may be to the detriment. Like you said, they've now shown a history of allowing smaller groups of people to use Pinkalo's the example that you brought up, functional, about like the pipeline protests, because they don't really do. I mean, they've started arresting here and there, but not by much. That still stops them. People can block access of grains from going across Canada by sitting on the trains. They don't move them. It's already now has been a history and a practice in the last couple of years where people now know they're not going to take any action against them. So it's already set a dangerous precedent there. Now, should they start fighting against these small group in a democratic, so-called democratic country by going against these protesters? I don't know. But my question would be, why wasn't action done previously because there was certain actions that, certain, I'm all over the place, I apologize, but certain blockades of like even more important things like access to emergency services that happen up here where I am. They blocked 4 different hospitals for a day. So people had to redirect. They didn't really do much. Eventually they went away, but because that was the aim of the protest was, nurses against vaccines and this and that and the other. So that, they did their weekend and that was it. But yeah, that's my view on these things. I have no answer. Not really. I don't know what the heck to do. part of me, I'm one of those people who hate being inconvenienced, which is not necessarily a good stand to take, but it's the same thing with anything else. As you block my way, I'm not going to be 100% on your side if you do something so major that it somehow screws up with my life, because I'm a miser like that. But I mean, like, you on one hand you can sympathize and understand why you're doing this, and also the mandates are dumb for this particular group, but on the other hand it's just like, why are you destroying my neighborhood? Go away. But yeah.
What do you mean there's no fresh hamachi tonight?
I know. Oh,
You bastards!
There you go.
Don't get between me and my sushi,
God.
you assholes.
Thank God
Yeah.
I live on the water. That's one
Right.
thing I will not lose.
But if it's a
anytime
boat
soon. If it
blockade,
is,
then you know.
oh,
Mhm.
What are you gonna say, Geodes?
I have something at the very end I can throw in, but I did link an article with the tweet to it. So
Thank you.
Mhm.
Skep, did you want to follow up on any of this? Because you've been very, very good and quiet.
I guess that's synonymous with me. I
Uh-huh.
would say that the 28% figure that they're throwing around, 28% of our trade comes over that bridge. I suspect that that is a figure that is very advantageous to one side. If you look at the accounting assumptions that are
Mhm.
made, and you have to make them in coming up with a composite figure like that, I suspect that's a pretty loaded figure. If 28% of all trade to Ontario was being cut off because of that bridge, a lot of bad things would happen very quickly.
Well, they're
And-
saying U.S. and Canada. It's not just Ontario, but
Or
like basically
I
a
think that
quarter
the
of all
Ambassador
your
Bridge
trade.
is Alberta, and that is about a quarter of all of
is
our
there
trade with
is
the
there
United
evidence that people live outside of Ontario though in Canada?
States. No,
Allegedly.
I
Yeah.
don't
just
exist.
look at our polling now.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'll have none
any,
of it.
just judging from the way they run their government, Ontario is it. And but I'm just kidding. I just said it for Sora and
Yeah.
functional.
Exactly.
I don't believe the 28% figure. I don't believe it's having that great of an effect on them. I think some people who have some power are being inconvenienced and they're rattling the cages up above them. And this is causing the politicians to howl. I don't think this is as serious as everybody else seems to think it is.
Yeah, but I thought it might get some good discussion going, and I wasn't.
Yeah,
wrong,
it is an
which was
excellent
good.
discussion foil.
Yeah.
Excellent discussion. Well done.
So thank you. Yeah, actually, and you know, this is one thing I like about this group. We all kind of know each other well enough that it's really easy to disagree and be civil. And I can juice it a little just for the sake of devil's advocate. I mean, I do kind of agree with that point, but much like Sora, I don't know what the right answer is. I want them
also
to be
nice-
consistent about it. If it turned out they crack down on these people, and then from this moment on, they crack down on BLM and all the other dissidents who spend 100 days and nights trying to firebomb the courthouse in Oregon. I mean, if we were just going to be consistent about it, it would almost be worth it to stop the other stuff. But if they're only going to selectively, clamp down on these protesters, but the protesters of indigenous color and stuff, they get a free pass to just loot and kill and cause billions of dollars of damage, then that's no bueno.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, again, I don't have the answers here. I just know there's a part of it that makes me feel very uncomfortable, which is why I brought it up. So, next thing. Oh, sorry, Geodes. What is it?
Couple points. One is, and this is something Prospero mentioned in chat. Apparently, this bridge is privately owned, which is one kind of notable thing. Two, I think and to Skep's point, I think one of the reasons they're cracking down is because you have companies like General Motors and stuff getting antsy and starting to complain to the Canadian government. And the third thing is that the article I link, this particular person who tweeted out that wonderful post, she rolled back and didn't do an apology, but Sora did. She says, and I'll do my best Karen voice. Earlier today, I tweeted something that has been used by others to suggest I was promoting vigilantism. I was not. People have the freedom to protest. Governments have the responsibility to protect public safety. That was what I intended to say.
No, she's a moron.
That was
Ignore her.
beautiful, Gio. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the Sway. This is a Trailer Park Boys joke, but the Swayze Express can only carry so much stuff across the border. And with that, let's move on to the next thing. I don't even know if anybody's seen the Trailer Park Boys, but there's this. So this dude moved to Texas from Texas to San Francisco because they pay you to be homeless. Listen to how he regularly sees death and sells fentanyl to teens with no police enforcement. I don't need to go over all this stuff. This is just absolutely terrible. This guy basically breaks down all of the stuff that he gets. Homeless guy. You're going to be homeless. It's pretty easy here. I mean, if you're going to be realistic, they pay you to be homeless. The reporter says, when you say that San Francisco pays people to be homeless, what did you mean by that? Did you mean it literally? Yeah, I mean, I get $620 a month, dude. From general assistance, yeah. Is it hard to get? No. You just basically make a phone call and you get $200 in food stamps, $620 a bunch, then cash. Yeah, free money. So $820 a month in subsidies from the city to shit on the sidewalk. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Vancouver's no better, right? Sora, I mean, you're just full of, you've got as many bleeding hearts there as we do in San Francisco.
I don't know how much money they get, but that's not far off. Like it's, you have fairly temperate climate. You've got people pushing for modular housing, more and more being built in nice neighborhoods away from, the main lot of drug use. So you can have a new ground to cover if you're an entrepreneur. I don't know. That's dark. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it seems very, I mean, what was the joke that every time there's some sort of Olympics or something in other parts of Canada, they give everyone a Greyhound ticket to come to Vancouver just to clear the streets.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to go ahead and let Geodes put the link to this. It's pretty sad.
Yeah,
we don't need to.
Depressing.
I think we can get some of our time back. I just thought it was just shocking enough that I wanted to bring this up.
I'm not against giving people fish, but it's ultimately better serving for both the individual and the community to teach the man to fish.
Yes. Well, we're gonna get to that because there's a segment coming up with functional, and then there's a controversial hot take I've got that I'm gonna make later on. So let's just table that for the time being. What were you gonna say, Sora?
I was just going to say for this, for every one of these examples, like this gentleman here from Texas that came over, that you say like, look, this is what's coming in if we're having these social nets or whatever. They're going to say, no, he's the outlier. This is beyond a bad exception. It's one bad egg. It's no problem. This is not the system is not failing. It's not corrupt or being
no true homeless person. Basically, it's the no true Scotsman thing, but applied to homeless people.
This is not what's happening. So it's, what can you do?
No, it is what's happening because living here, I've seen some of the people that are very well off using food stamps and those cards to basically pay for their groceries. Literally a woman who's well dressed, getting out of her Mercedes and paying for things in food stamps. And it wasn't that many years ago that I saw something on Fox. They were in Southern California and they were interviewing this surfer guy who was pretty much just r/anti-work. He's like, no way, man, I get all this free stuff and food stamps and I get to surf all day. It's the California dream. I just live in my van. It's like, I'm sick and tired of people like you just sucking off the government teat.
Well, where's the oversight? Where's the oversight of these things?
These people are so busy being virtuous that they don't care. And besides, it's not their money. It's the taxpayers' money.
On a
right, because they don't pay taxes.
On a smaller scale, an example I can give from work. So there is a thing called like a TAP form. So that's the Transit Assistance Program, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a thing, if you have to travel to access medical care, the government reimburses you. So the way it happens is, say if you get a referral sent out to a doctor in a different city, or if you're living on the island or up north and you have to travel or fly, you know, your one doctor who gave the referral creates this form for you. You apply through the government, you get a special number. It's very easy. You get it quite quickly, apparently. And then any subsequent visits with a specialist, they give you another form. So every time you visit, if you have to return, you get reimbursed. And this is supposed to be for people with financial difficulties. That's the whole point of this program, right? Like, you're living either in communities that have minimal access, where, you know, you really have to go above and beyond to get out of there to get medical care, or, you know, you're on an island and you have to take 2 ferries to get to the mainland because there isn't a specialist anywhere for you to get there, right? That's the whole point. The majority of the patients who keep asking for them, we know from conversations with them that they don't need them. It's $50 with a car to cross over on a ferry one way. And you're wearing, like, okay, we can't judge, and we have to provide if they ask for it. But it's just something inside seethes, because it's like, you don't need this. You don't need to have your 50 whatever dollars one way compensated for you when you come and see us once every, say, 6 months.
Well, I think
there's just something about that is just gross.
I know it's just gross. But I'm going to go back on what I said to Functional. I'm going to go ahead and say my hot take now. I've been thinking about this, and Functional is going to talk later about he's going to provide a concrete example of how these anti-work people are full of crap, because they will say that you can't.
You never said concrete.
That you can't. Yeah. That these people don't eat poorly, because of just basically they're talking about why they eat crap food, right? These poor people, why they eat crappy food. And there's this whole narrative about why they eat crappy food. I was sitting here thinking, well, we give these people food stamps and we give them these EBT cards. What if we simply encourage these people to eat better by increasing the amount of money that's on the card, but only letting them use it for unprocessed foods? You can buy flour, you can buy sugar, you can buy hamburger, you can buy, chicken breast, you can buy rice, you can buy all these things. What you can't buy is like Funyuns and grape soda and all this stuff. What if we just simply said, if you want to buy that crap, you buy it out of your discretionary money? You have other
we will give you money for real food.
Yeah, let's just stop. And if you're saying because honestly, if there was more of a demand for that type of food in these areas, there would be more programs like the buses that take produce in, the farmers markets, all the other types of stuff. The market would just fix this problem.
Yes.
If we created different incentives. Why are we incentivizing and enabling people to eat crap? So just don't let them buy it with their food stamp money.
They've tried that.
Well, let's do it again, but harder. Let's do it for real. Let me just be a
conviction.
complete dick about it.
Do it again, but harder.
No, but I'm just going to be a dick about this. I don't see... We're complaining about, the food deserts and all the other stuff, and it would just solve itself if people who are on assistance actually had better food to eat.
I feel like, at least in my state, I'm double checking, but I think they're not allowed to buy soda or kind of sort of junk food. Like, they're not allowed to buy processed, like, potato chips and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I think, unless they push that back, which can always happen. But there's some states that have tried, some succeeded, some have not. I know that. But yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, it's not the government's job to basically fill in for the parents. I understand that. But at the same time, you've got people in a lot of these cases who have proven that they don't know how to take care of themselves. They're like 500 pounds, eating, dollar menu Jack in the Box all the time. They're just living off this stuff. It's affecting their health. God, who knows what it's doing to their kids. I'm not suggesting that anybody starve, but you can buy butter, you can buy potatoes, you can buy lettuce, you can buy all of these healthy things. And just with the right incentives, I kind of feel like the problem will solve itself. Maybe I'm just being too optimistic.
Harry?
Yes, sir?
Would a list like, foods for the household, such as fruits and vegetables, meat, poultry, and fish. You can buy those. Dairy products, you can buy those. Breads and cereals. Okay. And you can even buy snack foods and non-alcoholic beverages. You can also buy seeds and plants which produce food for the household to eat. However, hang on. You cannot buy beer, wine, liquor, cigarettes, or tobacco. You cannot buy vitamins, medicines, or supplements. Okay. You cannot buy live animals. You cannot buy foods that are hot at the point of sale. And you may not buy any non-food items such as pet foods, cleaning supplies, paper products, other household supplies, or hygiene items or cosmetics. Would that be a start toward what you're talking about?
I feel like you're going to tell me that's the existing regulation or something. I know there's a punchline here.
I'm reading it out of the actual law. I'm reading it out of the SNAP implementing regulation.
Right. And yet,
So,
I see people using these cards, buying things that I think we would all acknowledge don't belong
here's
in their card.
Here's the problem, Harry.
Yes.
You can't enforce that compliance in a meaningful way. And if you took draconian measures, you would injure some very important some institutions that are very important to people in their daily lives. If you injured Walmart or injured Kroger, or for selling people the wrong food, you would end up cutting off your nose to spite your face, and you'll never get them on board with the level of effort. You would almost have to have a Germanic type of population, almost Teutonic obedience to enforce this that way. I think what you're talking about has been tried. I think they tried to write it into the law. I read you the exact things. By the way, here is a link from the USDA. I'm going to put it in private chat so you can check me out.
Well, there's more than
Right
one
now.
program. You're talking about food
I'm talking about
stamps.
SNAP.
You're talking
I'm
about
talking
SNAP.
about
Now,
SNAP.
there are a lot of other programs that are a lot more lenient, and I've seen these arguments. What they say is it's about human dignity. They say it's about human dignity, and I've seen them buying things they shouldn't.
Thinking this way, and they've run into problems with enforcing compliance.
If you go to the store and you have an FSA, and you go to like Walgreens, right? You go to Walgreens and you pick up a bunch of things and you go up to the counter. It says on your receipt which things are FSA approved and which things aren't.
Right.
It's not hard in a database to say this SKU's allowed, this SKU isn't. I don't think for a second that they can't easily enforce this.
The way people get around it, and I've seen them do this in my state, they literally just split the bill. They have the stuff that is allowed under SNAP, because we're just going to use SNAP as a basis. And you put that on SNAP, and then they have a second one that they pay in cash. Because at least in my state, a lot of people get paid under the table. So this way they don't have any. So this way they can continue to apply for food
stamps. That's fine. They can use their discretionary money to buy all the non-SNAP approved things. By the way, I don't need to be right about this. I just want things to suck less. So if they apply the existing laws faithfully, the ones that Skep laid out, then we're in good shape. Then you get into the problem of poor people not having access to stuff, and then what is the problem? I don't think it's patriarchy or people hating the poor that's stopping people from having access to high quality food. I'm confident the market will solve this problem if the demand exists. And I'm just trying to think, how do we create that demand?
Well, it also has, and it's not necessarily food deserts, because it's actually the opposite. Like in my state, because we don't have any major cities, we don't have to worry about, we do have major cities, but they're nothing compared to anywhere else. We don't have like the tiny grocery stores that have very little in them because they can only take up so much space. We have Walmart, we have Kroger. So there's more selection out where I live than what I've seen in some grocery stores in big cities, just because the grocery stores that have all the selection are ones like Whole Foods. And as far as I think Whole Foods doesn't take food stamps. I think. I could be wrong. Someone correct me. But So it's like the good food, or at least the more well taken or the larger store, is air quotes priced out. They have to shop at smaller places like bodegas and stuff like that and get and at places that may not take food stamps. So then they use cash and then they buy junk somewhere else. And there's a whole lot of problems. I know here in West Virginia, when they use the SNAP card, it does the thing where it literally will not let someone scan something that's listed in one of the they cannot haves. Because I've heard the system error out.
Well, if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to go ahead and just skip to Functional's part of the show, since I've been talking way too much.
If I can bridge us, because
you can bridge us,
because this seems like it's the Band-Aid problem, right? We're trying to slap this program to sort of stem the flow of this hemorrhage, and where we should be focusing our efforts to bridge us to the next topic is more about education. We've seen up here, and I've heard from stories from across the states as well, that things like home ec, like cooking and these things that are pertinent to this conversation aren't being taught anymore at a very young formative age. And where we saw with the school lunch discussion, we sort of saw a little bit of why, and it's that corporate influence of getting them not so much hooked on the food, but on the brand. So you're using those formative years in the wrong way. If we can attack that problem at a more central area and teach people how to make better choices, and if you want to bring up the first article.
No, okay, so I'm presenting. Okay, hold on.
I thought you were.
No, here we go. Sorry, I was looking at a note from Elowen and it threw me off.
Tisk Carrie.
So this one? No, that's the. This was basically the hook.
That's what you sent me later to be
this
like.
Study, and basically the abstract is that the only way to make people, since poor income seems to be associated with poor health in terms of nutrition, we really should just find some way to give these people more money, and then their nutrition will.
That's all they need.
Yeah, because
they
that's
won't
how
buy
it
more
works.
sugar and more tobacco. And more
booze. I mean, if there's a correlation between poverty levels and poor eating, then the only explanation for people eating poorly is that they don't have enough money to eat well, right?
Which is,
because that's totally how causation works. Okay, you wanted the next article.
No more malarkey.
Okay, is it this one?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So Harry brought this to my attention and wanted to sort of like have a little bit of a thing about it. And he sent me this article, which the article itself is kind of, here's another food blog of things you can do more specifically. But if we scroll down, it really hits on the sort of notes that you want to start with in having, very basic natural foods come together in a tasty, appealing way that you might not think about, but are good, nutritious, and cheap. Some of this stuff, like easy chicken fried rice, that is so how you when you're shopping, waiting for sales, a savvy shopper, you don't have to be the savviest shopper, but a savvy shopper nonetheless will see sales. They'll see like, oh, chicken thighs are on sale this week for like 40% off. You buy extra, spend less on your next outing, and by freezing some of those chicken thighs, and then that way the next time you need to purchase proteins like that, you're saving quite a bit of money. And in that sort of spirit, you can buy cheaper cuts, and if you prepare them well enough, they come out fantastically. You don't need to be eating the beautifully trimmed, deboned chicken breasts all the time. You can have thighs. You can have I mean, there's lots of what do you call them? Not sweetbreads. The tripe. Lots of tripe cuts, feet, blah blah blah. They are a little bit more of an acquired taste, and I can understand how to a lot of people, especially when we're talking about in these situations, they typically live in more urban areas. Seeing sort of that country fare isn't really visually appealing to them, so they tend to shy away from that stuff. So, fair's fair. And when you're dealing with trying to feed a family, when you have young children, you have to go through some of that experimentation of, well, what will they eat? What won't they eat? What do they just absolutely abhor? And you won't feed them. But on other notes, they might be a little adverse to, say, eating broccoli, but they're just saying that because it's more of a cultural thing than opposed to their actual taste or something.
Maybe don't start them on heart and liver,
Yeah. Like chicken and rice is easy fare. Easy stuff. And some of these
so good.
Yeah, and actually the bones add flavor because chicken thighs taste way better than chicken breasts. And they actually have a lot of iron in them, which people need.
Mm-hmm.
People need
and
iron.
before I get onto the next sort of subtopic, that's a really good example, Harry. Like if you buy bone-in, say, chicken legs and you roast them off, you get all that delicious, brilliant juice at the end. You're not going to be ladling that down your throat. But if you are educated in just, you don't have to be a master chef, but knowing how much flavor and how much nutrition is in that chicken grease to then repurpose, like wrap it up in a mug, throw it in the fridge. 3 days later, you can throw it into some boiling water and you've got a delicious chicken stock.
Or you can
and
cook
then,
your potatoes in it.
And then do potatoes or if you want to have a treat, I know we're getting a little bit on the more exotic, but like chicken fried steak or there's so many great things that you can do with some of these runoff. So one of the big things about trying to save money, eat on a budget, and not eat horribly is planning meals. And if you want to bring up the next the article.
So not this one.
No, actually, yeah. Let's sort of circle back. We'll talk about
time of year matters.
Seasonal buying, because believe it or not, when you're buying something out of season, you are paying a little extra. Might not be that noticeable to you, as you're paying an extra like 10 cents for tomatoes here and there. It doesn't really register. But if you have to be in that situation where every dollar counts, every dime counts, then perhaps maybe looking at what's in season and what's eventually going to save you a couple bucks each month might be advantageous. Also, obviously, this is very generic, sort of U.S. Canadian availability. Obviously, a lot of regions differ. You can be in Nevada and have very, very different availability to products than New Mexico, even though they're really close to each other, because there's that added cost of things need to be shipped from one area to another. But again, you can save quite a bit of money just by starting very basically and saying, okay, what's in season?
Yeah. Now the
and
next article,
the,
right?
the sort of to tie it to the trucker conversation, something I've noticed with the lack of some of the imports in the grocery store is I'm now thinking a little bit more seasonal. I'm like, okay, well, X isn't really in season up here and it's not on the shelves. Look at all these alternatives. Great. Let's do it. And so this, again, another blog where we're dealing with cheap ways to plan ahead, plan meals at a time. And it's not, again, something a lot of people are really even aware of. People tend to just eat whatever they feel. So, I'm hungry, and walk into the kitchen and whip something up, which is sometimes okay. I can do that. I've had many years in a kitchen. I'm very culinarily adept, and for me, something like that's easy. But for the rank and file, for people who aren't experts in the kitchen, and I'm by no means an expert, but I'm pretty knowledgeable at what I do and good at what I do. Meal planning is a great way to save money and save some of that emotional stress. Again, especially if you have kids or a family that you're providing for in that manner. Meal planning, great idea. You got to sort of first come up with a list of things that is unique to your situation. How many meals a day do you eat? Because as Harry and I talked before the show, you don't need to be eating 3 big meals a day. In fact, a lot of us, I know, just anecdotally, me and Elwin has, a light breakfast, and then we have a large dinner together. Me, I'm a grazer. I have, little snacks here or there throughout the day, and then have that big meal at the end of the day. So first, that's the first thing you got to sort of identify. How many people, how many times a day, and what type of eating do you like? So if you want to scroll down, this kind of gives us a really good idea of what kinds of things that we can think of when we're planning a meal. So as I said, Elwin will have a light breakfast, and further down, this is the first sort of meal plan. Day 1, there we go. Oatmeal with fruit. Oatmeal with fruit. Easy peasy breakfast. And
cheap too, the oatmeal thing. You get a big thing of oats.
Dirt cheap, especially if you consider, just like what you're saying, Sora. Sorry to just quickly cut you off, but using prepackaged frozen fruit. A lot of people tend to go with fresh fruit, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, if we're talking trying to save every last penny, that frozen fruit stuff that's dirt cheap compared to the frozen stuff, it'll last you forever.
Yeah, you bring out what you need for that meal. Like you basically, and the frozen bag, you get some blueberries. Just bring out the ones you need, and that way you're not throwing away the half tub of blueberries that goes bad on your sink.
And when you cook those blueberries in with your oatmeal, oh man, it gets that sort of little bit of runoff, and you get those bursts of flavor inside the oatmeal. It's delicious.
And it's purple.
And it's not something like, it's kind of a plan. It's more of a sort of standby solution, because anybody can have a big Tupperware jar full of oats ready to go, and it takes no time whatsoever to cook.
And if sorry to interrupt for this, for anyone who likes overnight oats, if you want different, same thing, still cheap, but you leave them soaking up whatever liquid you cook in, whether it's a milk alternative or maybe some sweetened water, whichever. Leave it overnight, and then you've got like in the fridge. Yes, sorry. Yes. Very important. Or else
otherwise we're making beer, which is a whole different.
And there's another option. So it's very versatile. It's one of the best things.
Well, if you're not using quick oats, letting it soak overnight in the fridge, not that we need to get into details, but the whole oats, like steel cut oats, if you let them soak in the fridge, it cuts down on the cooking time. So you're not wasting a lot of money cooking them for like a half an hour, which is what it takes for those. It actually cuts the cooking down way down. So the steel cut oats cook in the same amount of time as the quick oats would if you just plan ahead a little bit.
And you can take that even a step further. Like if you are really on the go and you've got like no time to even think, never mind, take those few minutes to act, you can do that sort of rehydrating of the oats in small portions, containers or whatnot, and then freeze them. They'll last for months, and you can just pop one out, stick it in the microwave to defrost it, and then cook it. You're good to go.
Yeah, and actually saving money isn't just for poor people. It could be you're trying to save up money for a down payment on a house. So you start bagging your lunch and taking it. There's a lot of reasons. There's nothing wrong with being responsible with your food budget. It's something that everybody can do, unless you're just made of money. It's kind of an important lesson for everyone to get ahead in the world. It's just one of the easiest places that you can cut expenses so that later you can have a much better life. Sorry, I'm being a little preachy. Go on, Functional.
No, I'm appreciating people finally chipping in. So the day 1 meal plan here. Again, for lunch, hummus with fruit and veggie sticks. That's super easy. Again,
chickpeas are cheap too.
Chickpeas are one of the cheapest legumes you can buy. They're intensely nutritious. You get huge volume for little money, and making hummus isn't hard at all. You can find an easy, like 3-ingredient recipes, because I know we love 3-ingredient recipes. No cook, literally no cook.
Don't start
And-
with me functional.
And it's fantastic, you know. If you got a blender, you can do it. Or, you know, again, if you really want to get, you know, salt of the earth cooking styles, you mash them yourself.
Well, in
I
the
mean,
interest
quick
of time, we
flash
probably can't explain how to make hummus, every single thing. But
No.
when you were talking
I'm
about
just saying
chicken, I
it's-
did want to point out that chicken, if you buy the pieces, it's even if they're not breast pieces, it's more expensive. Just get the whole chicken, or maybe just get the rotisserie chicken from the market, because you know what? They actually will sell those as a loss leader in some places like Costco.
Mhm.
And
Like the
you can
the actual
right,
cooked
yeah, you can
rotisserie?
you eat the chicken, and then you save the bones in the freezer.
yeah.
And then when you have 2 or 3 carcasses, you know, like put them in a Ziploc bag, save them in the freezer, you can make stock. And then you can, you know, when you're feeling sick, you throw a few noodles in, save a little bit of the chicken white meat in the freezer. You've got a great chicken soup, homemade. Way better than anything that's going to come out of a can. And cheap, because you're really
Oh.
just using something that somebody else would just throw away.
Or, in addition, you could just use those bones, make that soup right away, and then again freeze portions. This pre-cooking your meals for like a week at a time. I know Sanguine does this.
Well, I do it too. I actually
A lot of
buy
people do it.
to-go
It's
containers, like the kinds that
Yeah.
you can put in the freezer or the microwave. I buy
Mhm.
them like 50 at a time off of Amazon, and when I make a meal, I'll make up like 3-4 times what I actually need, and then put the rest, some in the fridge, some in the freezer, so you don't get burned out eating the same thing all the time. But when
Yeah,
you
you
have
can
a
have
family
two
of
choices.
4, because this is for a family of 4, right? You
This one
don't have,
specifically.
it's easier then, because you don't necessarily have all the leftovers. If you're a single person, you need to be better about planning and distributing and freezing. But for a family of 4, they might eat that in a day or 2.
Mhm.
So it's simpler. Sorry, go on.
I'm just thinking, like, with a family of 4, you generally, and I would hope to have it, you know, conducive to a really good sort of home life. You would have a more devoted individual, typically a mother, doing this kind of stuff. So a lot of these quick saving tips, you know, like freezing personal portions and stuff like that, they can be good, like, you know, every now and then. But it's more for a smaller family unit, and typically people with 2 incomes or no incomes. Again, we're looking at cheap, effective way to feed for poor people to feed themselves, teach them how to fish. So to speak.
Well, yeah, I'm going to blow your mind here, because it's
I don't
not,
think so.
you don't think about just the 4. If you're in an apartment building and there's a family with 4 kids in one place, and across the hall there's another family of 4 kids, why not go to the restaurant supply place, get the big thing of chicken, get 3 or 4 families in, and just take turns cooking for everybody? You can do that. You can go and then you can buy the stuff and split it up. You can go in together on a group buy for something to save even more money. There are a lot of possibilities if you just open
Harry.
your mind to it.
Not a bad idea.
Harry, why are
Yeah.
you wanting people to socialize together?
Oh, sorry. Make sure you
want
wear
them
your
to catch
masks.
tofu? And
I
to
don't talk to people. There's a stranger danger.
Yeah, sorry.
to
I'll shut
also
up.
bring Skep into this, there's also another thing we haven't talked about that immensely can help and save and can be a social activity: gardening. He brought up the availability, the potential availability of seeds through the SNAP legislation. Okay, so obviously, first of all, do you live in an apartment? Then chances are you probably won't have a garden, but you can have little planters and maybe plant some
Oh,
fruit,
well,
some
herb,
veg.
like a
herb
herb
gardens.
garden. Yeah,
Easy,
would be
don't
probably
take
the
up much
easiest.
room, add immense diversity, bursts of flavor into just the run-of-the-mill humdrum things that you might think of. Like, again, I said that 3-ingredient hummus. Add a little basil. Boom, you've got a completely almost different dish. So, okay, maybe you don't live in an apartment building or a condo or something like that. Maybe you do have room to grow. Where can you learn to grow? Do you have neighbors that grow? Maybe once you get going, you got, you know, like when I was a teenager in my parental home, I grew raspberries, peaches, cucumbers, olives, and onions. And I had a lot of Italian neighbors. What do Italians grow all the time? And Skep, tomatoes, 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 tomatoes. Oh my God. And it was great because I'd be talking to these like 60-year-old retired Italian men talking about our gardens and blah, 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 learning stuff about, you know, their first generation immigrants and this and that. So it's a good social activity, as well as very budget conscious and friendly. And also, if you have the time, engaging. It's something to give you something we tend to not talk about at all in giving people the appreciation for the food that they eat. It doesn't always have to be regarded with animals, but just everything else, fruits, veggies. Like a lot of people in rural areas, and again, tend to be the sort of demographic that we're looking to try to help here. If they can have that appreciation for food, maybe it'll help affect them in a positive way to make more health conscious choices. Like, yeah, maybe I will buy that bag of carrots and eat that for a snack during the day instead of potato chips.
So we are running way behind schedule. Mostly my fault. Don't worry about that. But we you want to go over a few of these days really quickly? Because the point here is to show that it can be done. It's like,
yeah,
put your money where your mouth is. I say, yeah, you can feed people. You know, for $50 a week for 4 people, that's 1/4 of what that guy who's living in San Francisco on the streets getting in food stamps. He's getting $200 a month for just him. But of course, if he's homeless, his ability to actually cook these things might be an issue, right? So
that's something that really can't fit into this paradigm.
So there may be a need for other types of things for people who actually don't have a place to cook for themselves. But for the vast majority of people that are below the poverty line but not homeless, something like better education could actually go a long way. And in terms of like, if they say I'm working 2 jobs and I don't have time to cook, well, a lot of this stuff doesn't really take all that long. And even a shitty thing like Tasty, which is a BuzzFeed channel, will show you how to make like in the oven like a 1 sheet pan meal with cherry tomatoes and chicken breasts and a few things, a little salt, and a little pepper, and you're done. Cooking doesn't have to be time consuming. It doesn't have to be hard. And the internet's there. I mean, people are running around being their own doctors and being their own lawyers and doing all this other stuff, but they seem to think that cooking is this indecipherable enigma that only like highly trained chefs can handle. And it's not.
No,
it just takes.
Really not.
You just have to have a little bit of bravery, and you have to not be afraid of failing, because you are going to screw things up occasionally, and then you'll have a good laugh and you'll have some pizza. It'll be fine.
And you can experiment, but keep it simple, stupid.
Especially
Great
when you're
rule.
getting started.
And like you said with the time consuming stuff, again, planning saves so much time, as well as making those frozen, ready to eat things. And again, to go back to this article, it's more about the kind of idea of having a light sort of early meal, be it breakfast or whatever you eat, and again, some sort of lunch that's simple, easy, takes no time to just sort of whip together, or like what I like to do in graze, and having just things there that I can pick at during the day, and then having a good filling, hearty meal at the end. There's also things you can do like meatless days, which no, thank you, not for me. I'm a meat and grains kind of guy, but a lot of people who don't have those kind of dietary restrictions, it's very easy to have just a meatless day and save some money.
Dude, I had a vegetarian, it was supposed to be like a vegetarian lasagna for lunch. It basically had eggplant and lentils, brown lentils in it. And it was really more of a vegetarian moussaka because it also had a bechamel. But a bechamel is just, milk, a little bit of flour, you make a sauce. It's not complicated. With pasta, it was absolutely delicious and cheap. It was cheap, it was healthy.
Harry.
I've got enough leftovers for a long damn time that are going in the freezer. And it was, if you look at the amount of time spread out, when you amortize it over all the meals, it's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time, and it's not a lot of cleanup.
I once, when I back way in the day when I actually was on Twitter, I tweeted a response to something Gordon Ramsay said. I said, if we just teach in high school or even earlier these kids how to make the 5 basic mother sauces in home economics, the world would be a better place. And he actually clicked like on it. It was good.
Yep. Get rid of CRT and actually bring back home economics.
Yeah. Because again, like potato and egg hash
and budget
stupid
planning.
Easy. Tuna salad, can of tuna, and some chopped green onion and some seasoning. Done.
Yep.
Stupidly simple stuff. And again, if you're planning these things ahead, it takes a lot of the guesswork out. It takes a lot of the time and effort and emotional drain that I actually can empathize with some people. In previously being an in-home cook / manny for a family, I could see that the frustration of, okay, the parents went out, they worked all day, they came home, and now they have to think more about. It's an emotional drain. Yes, they come home, they have time with the kids, but now they've got to get on starting to think of what to feed the kids. And the planning takes all that out of the way. And it's such a great idea. More people, not just the poor, the poorest of us or the least fortunate, who have the means of a kitchen, should be thinking about this. I think more people should, because, maybe you don't need to necessarily be saving up for a house, but wouldn't it be nice to find an extra $6,000 in your bank account at the end of the year?
It would be.
Geodes, I'm looking at you. Because you're looking at me with those googly eyes.
So does anybody have any questions for Functional before we move on to, I have a little break planned for us.
I'm good.
You good?
No,
And
sir.
if anybody in the
you.
chat or on the panel ever wants to pick my brain about foodstuffs, I'm always on Discord. I'm always reachable on Discord. You can feel free to drop me a PM through the Minions Discord or anything else that we're on mutual. And I love talking cooking. Like, Harry's had to shut me up a couple times to sort of have a break in this, just, because I can go on about food forever. And I enjoy it. And I love being able to teach somebody a little bit more.
The one thing I have to say is this: if you're going to invest in stuff to help you cook, you can get a good low cup rice cooker for like $20.
Mm-hmm.
Rice cooker, tiny crock pot, maybe a hot plate if you don't have a kitchen. Bing, bang, boom, you're done.
Yeah. A little bit of,
I know that there's
a little bit of chuck, a little bit of chuck. If you have some cheap red wine, a couple bay leaves, a little bit of bacon, just throw it in there. Some carrots. You can come home to a delicious meal. Slow cookers are fantastic.
You also remind me of something, Serenity. There's a couple, I want to say homeless shelters, but they're not really like homeless shelters. They're like whatever. But they open the kitchen to the homeless to be allowed to come in and cook meals for themselves.
Yeah, which is what they should do.
No,
Yeah,
that's
I
awesome.
mean, it's a great little. And just to sort of close off, look, I know there's some of you out there. I'm looking at Elwyn right now. Who are just hopeless in the kitchen. That's okay. It's okay. You can find yourself a good man or woman who can cook. No, I'm just kidding. But like, I understand some people are just completely hopeless in cooking. Don't give up hope. You can still find cheap, easy, idiot-proof ways to get things done.
My sister used to burn water, and now she can actually cook. If she can do it, so can you.
Yeah. We're not looking for, Michelin star level cooking here. We're looking basics, just basics. Basics can get you so far.
So here, thank you, Functional. So here's something not
great.
basic. Here's something that I think you guys will like: holographic chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Is so pretty.
You've seen
Eat that
this?
when you're high.
Yeah.
Eat that when
It
you're
looks
high,
like-
man.
That looks like the paint I use on my miniatures.
So basically, you temper the chocolate in the normal way. And the point of tempering the chocolate is you want the grains of the chocolate to be the right size, essentially small and stable. There's all sorts of fun food chemistry that happens if you essentially take types of chocolate to particular temperatures. But you need something that's very, very smooth and of fine particle size, fine grain. And then you essentially pour it onto a diffraction grating something that has an optical effect, kind of like a CD-ROM. And then when the chocolate actually forms, you remove it from the diffraction grating, and light will, at an angle, will bounce off of it, giving you the same effect as if you're looking at a holographic film, which
I
is
think
Very
you
cool.
do that with resin, where they take like the molds that have like it's like you have to actually look at it in a microscope, but it has like little ridges in it. So this
Mhm.
way you can make the just regular resin look like it's holographic. I've seen that stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually really cool stuff.
Mhm.
Well, in the thing that's linked, there's a link in here to the Instructables on how to do this. But I actually thought that this particular
yeah.
post had better looking samples than the Instructables thing. But-
Sadly, that does happen with Instructables quite a lot.
Yeah, actually, in the what is it, Noir Bar? Not Noir Bar. Yeah, Noir Bar. Holly has done a couple things where they go through an Instructables thing and pick it apart, and
man.
that's actually been good fun.
Oh, I'm
Look at
sure,
that.
but still,
That is
like
so
that's
cool.
awesome. That's so cool.
That's
man.
very pretty.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
part of me thinks that it wouldn't taste right. Like, I don't know. I'm looking at that. I'm kind of getting cheap chocolate, gross taste, which has absolutely for no reason. I don't
Mhm.
think I'll ever eat it, but it's very pretty.
I think that's the animal brain kicking in, going, it's bright, it's shiny, it's colorful, it's poisonous.
It's poisonous, yeah.
That's what it's doing. It's like poison. Don't touch it. Don't
I-
touch me.
I would be worried I'd start glowing like that if I ate it. That just saying,
You should be so lucky.
Don't rub it on you. Gio.
So, is
Don't rub
anybody
it.
going to be too butthurt if I skip the health block, the following 3 articles in the schedule? Do we
Nah.
need to talk about those this week, or can we bring?
We
them up
already
next
talked
week?
about some health, so.
Okay.
But I think I might
Alright.
try. I missed that in the. I might try that recipe,
Yeah,
and if
why
I
not?
do, I'll definitely share a video.
Yeah.
So, as we often talk about such things, nuclear power, they were trying
Woo!
to get robots to go into the Fukushima reactor to figure out what's
Ooh.
going on.
Did
And
the
it was
robots say
delayed.
No.
The robots said no. They said not
The robot's
until,
like, fuck you.
not
I know
until
what
we
you
have
guys did
universal
to
health care.
Godzilla.
Yes.
They're like, we know what happened at Chernobyl when y'all tried to take a picture of a picture. No, we're not doing this.
But eventually they succeeded, and they found at the base of this thing what looks like a pile of molten fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. This reactor is not in good shape.
No.
And it makes me sad because nuclear power could be so much better than this. This is like your old school, let's put the generators in the basement where the tsunami came in. This is just a bad idea. 3 Mile Island was a bit of a mess, and honestly, Chernobyl should have never been built. That was just
Oh,
an
yeah.
abomination.
That was ridiculous.
And the only reason that it kept they kept that thing going, because they knew it was dangerous,
Oh yeah, they knew
was
shit,
because
yeah.
they needed the power. Because communism is so awesome that they can barely keep the lights on. So they
Wasn't
weren't going to let things like Risk get in the way.
Yeah, really. Well, wasn't it like wasn't the Fukushima one like wasn't the reactor supposedly past its prime anyway or something like that?
Well,
It
it
was
was
in poor
okay.
condition.
It
Yeah.
was the real issue was they were trying to get rid of some high level nuclear waste. So the fuel that was in the reactor wasn't just the regular fuel; it was special fuel.
It was the bad kind of fuel.
It had some really terrible stuff mixed in with the fuel
Ugh.
pellets. So
add in earthquake and a tsunami, and now you got
That it's
Yeah.
almost on
combination.
top of that fault line, that the earthquake. Yeah.
Pure
well,
genius.
we can't put the emergency generators on the roof, otherwise people will think we're trashy and low class. Let's put it in the basement where nobody can see it, because that was
Welcome to the
smart.
Japanese.
So because we have talked about this stuff before, because I really want to see the new generation of stuff come along. We talked about thorium reactors, and there was an article. It was
Lifters.
Matt Farrell, who has the Undecided channel, actually really, really, really good YouTube channel, but this is the print part of the article. He was talking about thorium reactors, and are we actually going to get thorium is much more abundant. You can burn all kinds of nuclear fuel in them. I mean nuclear waste in these things. The Chinese are about to spin up a research reactor. To cut to the chase here, we're looking at a levelized cost of something like this that probably works out to about $50 a megawatt hour. And
isn't thorium the one that when it like produces down, it goes into something else that can be used in nuclear reactors, and then it goes into.
Well, it's part of it. It becomes part of its own cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
It basically takes the thorium and turns it into uranium, which then goes through its normal reaction and then breaks down. You have to
Gotcha. Okay.
you have to kickstart this with a small amount of plutonium. By the way, it won't just sort
Well,
of.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you jumpstart a car, but
Well, that
after
makes
you
me-
do that, you don't need any more of the nasty stuff.
Well, that makes me feel better though that it just can't naturally occur. You gotta kickstart it with something because it means it's less likely to just
Yeah.
kind of go "fuck you" and just.
So they're looking at building these big molten salt reactors, and they're totally safe in the sense that if anything malfunctions, the coolant goes out, the thing starts to overheat, and it will automatically shut itself down.
It shuts itself down.
Oh.
It can't melt down by design. It's a much
You
better
could target
design.
it with a missile, and it would still shut itself down. It could crumble in an earthquake. It will still shut itself down. It is great. And just to sort of quickly, a little bit of a history of the inventor, the people who American Canadian scientists who are building this reactor in China. They proposed the idea to the United States. They said no. They proposed the idea to Canadian government. They said no. They kind of shopped around, and China said, "Hey, how about here?" And they were like, "Sure, why not?"
My issue is that I
Surprise.
I don't trust China's building regulations. I don't.
Neither
my
do
thing.
I, but I mean, I got to sort of empathize with these guys because they're like,
Yeah.
they just want to do their experiment.
Yeah, no, I
They
completely
want to
understand.
see their
I am-
baby,
Yeah, I understand from
This
that
is-
point of view, but oh boy.
This
Yeah.
is a
yeah, it's
fourth
like that
gen.
Wuhan lab in China.
What were you were going to make a joke, weren't you, Geos?
No, I was going to ask, is this is a 4th gen reactor, correct? What we're looking at? Like
What
for
we're
that
looking
design?
at would be actually Gen 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
that's what I
using a
thought.
slightly different fuel cycle.
Yeah.
The gist of this, the important thing is if you look at the overall cost of this, we could actually bring the cost down to, like I said, sort of in the $50 per megawatt range, megawatt hour, which would be great. But solar has become so cheap and wind is so cheap by comparison that if it wasn't for that pesky storage problem, we could just use those things. There'd be no reason to have these nukes.
Is
The
that
problem-
with or without subsidy, though?
This is without subsidy. This is
Okay,
when they
okay.
say the levelized, the LCOE or the levelized
Oh,
cost, it means that you're comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges in terms of all the stuff. But the batteries, if you want to generate power during the day and then use batteries, that's like $121 per megawatt to basically store that, kick it out. Plus,
Yeah.
you have to factor in there's about a 10% drop in power putting the power in and about 10% getting it back out again. So you're losing a lot of power in the inverter phases of getting it in and out of the battery storage system. So it's really expensive. I don't know if Skep, do you have any comments about this? Because I know you've talked about it in the past.
Well, to me, these types of reactors are, I think of them as the battery we need. Our problem is not in obtaining energy. The Earth gets plenty of sunlight, has enough movement of wind and so forth to provide us with all the energy we need, as you correctly point out. The thing about this type of reactor, the thing that makes it so appealing is not just cost, but reliability, predictability, the ability to regulate how much power they produce so they can respond to needs almost instantaneously in terms of fluctuating power needs. It suggests itself so strongly that I have to wonder if some people are just backing thing. In other words, I don't understand why this solution has been avoided so successfully thus far. I mean, I do understand. I read the newspaper, but it doesn't make sense to me that it hasn't had not just a closer look, but we should be way into implementation of this stuff. It's all doable. It's very, very doable. The technology that surrounds it is not exotic, and it's quite mature. I don't understand why we're not pulling the trigger. I agree with you. I think this is very appealing.
Well, this battery storage thing is the problem. As we said, it's just expensive. If something fundamentally changes, right, and batteries suddenly become dirt cheap,
yep,
we could make the argument that we don't need nuclear power ever.
Nuclear fuel is a battery. It's stored energy. We expect the energy. I mean,
modular reactors, like small modular reactors, will do an amazing job of doing things like propelling large ships across the sea. You can solve that. Yeah,
they're already good at that.
Yeah, but you can use it for things like solving that pesky shipping. How do we fuel ships problem? You can deal with small areas with low population density in extreme northern climates. You can use these for water desalination. There are a lot of things you can do with small nuclear power that are great.
But if you scale it up to where you're providing municipal power with these types of plants, imagine this. Imagine a car that had a battery in it, and you could just charge that with electricity from a nuclear power plant.
Until
is that
Mr.
a big
Fusion
idea
comes
or
along.
what?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about too with a lot of this stuff is you have a growing energy demand, and this is where like we start seeing like regulations on like what graphics cards and stuff people can buy and everything like that. But at the end of the day, if you have like corporations that produce like mechanical parts or chemical compounds, the energy consumption is eventually going to get to the point where they're going to need more energy than even like some of the green energy stuff, unless they're willing to basically turn like a huge swath of just land into like windmills and all kinds of other stuff. You're going to need something like one of these small reactors.
Bird Cuisinarts. Yeah. Well, the design that I like is not this molten salt thing. It's the one that uses basically pressurized helium gas to cool it and pebble bed. So this reactor here is a little modular 76 megawatt reactor. Imagine some town in Canada that doesn't get enough sun, doesn't have any water. Instead of bringing in diesel, you could actually power this and all the adjacent towns with this thing that just reliably runs all the damn time. And not only this
power you want.
This design has another beautiful, beautiful feature. You can have the pebbles that you put in it be uranium or thorium or some mixture of the two. You don't have to take this thing offline to refuel. You pull old pebbles out of the bottom and you put new pebbles in the top, and it just keeps running the whole time. You can buy one of these things, set it up. It's basically modular, so you don't have to do a lot of custom engineering. You just basically do site prep, hook this thing up, and then you're good for like 20 or 30 years. It's actually amazingly simple. I would just like to see more of this stuff. The main thing is you just can't get away from this damn battery cost. All these people that think we're going to change the world around, it's like you cannot hide from this number, this $121 per megawatt hour.
Yeah.
Also, it's not going anywhere.
Unfortunately, our population is made up of lots and lots of people who will sit there and look at you with calf eyes and say, birds have not needed anything but sunlight and wind for millions of years. I think we should be more like the birds, and that's how they make their decision about whether or not nuclear energy is a good idea.
Yeah,
that's the level of thought that they give it.
Yeah. Well, I have completely murdered the schedule. Sora, are you still with me?
I'm here.
You want to talk about that thing?
Sure.
Okay.
If you want to.
Yeah, I do want to. You brought this to my attention. Oh, that was horrible. Look at what just happened. Okay, just don't ever do that again, Harry. But this thing, the rise and rise of gender fluid fragrance. Would you care to tell us about this?
Giggity.
So, of course, title's what drew me in because it was made to catch your attention. Is that Owen?
Yes.
So I was like, the first thing I thought is, oh, is unisex not a thing anymore? Because that used to be a thing. And the actual article is nothing. That's not why I brought it to your attention. It's just talking about how people are experimenting with different scents and how there's lots of niche perfumiers nowadays that are basically creating the really niche expensive ones like Frederick Malle and other houses. They don't talk about it, but there's other houses like Byredo and Le Labo who have like scents who are based upon a feeling or a specific family or even a flower, and it's honestly can be worn by anybody. It goes beyond the old-fashioned dictates of men can only wear things that smell like leather and tobacco, and women can only wear light florals and baby powder, which is what this person's like, oh, we're doing away with that. It's all about like what smells good to you. Well, no shit. So like, okay. So for me, it was more like, okay, but the idea of this unisex fragrance and using scents and colognes that smell best on you has been around for decades now. Why aren't we calling it unisex anymore? Why gender fluid? And I wanted, and out of curiosity, was trying to find the difference, and if there is now a difference, because gender fluid is the term in vogue, right? With a lot of things. And I'm guessing because with unisex, it's usually an idea of there is a binary that exists. And with gender fluid, perhaps there isn't. I don't know. That's me reaching. But I did find a pseudo definition of the two from a Vogue Scandinavia article talking about the idea of why gender fluid fashion isn't a trend. So this is not for scents particularly, but it is for in the fashion world. So the idea is that gender fluid takes in the idea of, it celebrates both feminine and masculine specifically for that aspect. Like they celebrate feminine as ultra feminine and masculine as uber masculine, but together, whereas unisex clothing in this particular article, but I guess you could say in all aspects, hides the gender of the wearer or the smeller, I guess in this case. So the idea of unisex, it's supposed to be a neutral, all-encompassing thing versus something that highlights an aspect. So I was just
hold on a second. I'm confused. I want to. Okay. Hold on, just a little bit. When I was a kid, and I was watching TV, there was a show on called UFO, which I love. This is Benedict Cumberbatch's mom from UFO. Okay.
Oh.
So there's Wanda Ventham, pretty hot. Good job, Cumberbatch. Here's mom again. Looking pretty good there. And then
Very
so
I
this
love her
this
hairstyle. I love
this
that.
is 1970. So this is what the women wear in the submarine, looking good. Nice.
Very, very nice.
Winky.
Very appropriate. Here's what you wear on the space station. That's what is her name? God, I can't remember her name. Gabrielle Drake. Yes. So you have to wear your special space wig and wear your space mini skirt. This is fine. And then you fast forward to Space 1999, like 5 years later, and you've got Rudy Genrich unisex clothing. Everybody's wearing exactly the same freaking thing. And I remember as a kid thinking, I don't think I like this.
Bring back the mini skirts.
This was like,
I want to see gams.
This was like, before, I was like approaching any kind of adulthood. I didn't even understand what those feelings were, but even then I knew instinctively that I hated this. I liked the other thing better.
No tingly in the pants.
I got to the opposite experience because I grew up with Star Trek: The Next Generation, where everyone except for Troy wore these types of just very universal uniforms.
This would be unisex. It hides the form.
Yeah.
To an extent.
I'm just saying that I'm not a fan of
generation-
unisex. That's all I'm saying.
The next generation uniforms were tighter than that.
Yes. I will give it that. They were a little bit more touching on that, trying to sell a little bit more sex. But I really like the way that, say, Crusher or Troy in later seasons, when she put on the uniform, the way that they looked in those uniforms as opposed
Yeah.
to when they were in their off hours or their yoga clothes or what have you. I was kind of like, I don't know, there's just
Why is it
something
a
alluring.
third
Maybe it's
option?
just my own proclivity.
No, they were good uniforms. Like the Next Generation and into Deep Space Nine, those were good. Those were good. I like those.
But unisex perfume, do I really want women to smell like Axe body spray?
No.
Or men to smell like gardenias? I'm just saying, I'm not...
It depends on how the scent sits on your body chemistry.
Mhm.
Because there's some
Yes.
people who can carry certain florals and some who don't, regardless of gender. It's all about your body chemistry.
Yep.
Elwin Chat points out the rise of pheromone perfume.
Oh God, that.
And that's basically that's one aspect. That's where also there's a specific perfume, and I can't remember what it is, where it supposedly smells different on every single person because of how it oxidizes on your body chemistry. But it's regardless of who it smells on, it's still a weird scent, but that's what was so niche about it, because it will be altered specifically based on body chemistry. So I guess how sweaty and clean you are depends on what you smell like. But like this idea of the rise of the third option, I mean, it's for if you are the type of person who only ever buys in the drugstore, and that's fine, then you will never go outside. But if you want to actually spend money on a good scent and you go to a department store nowadays, and even like a few years back now, you've had these options for a long time because you've got different, like I said, niche perfumiers. I love perfume. You're going to have to spend a couple $100 minimum, but you'll have this option of basically some of the best smelling recipes ever that have no gender. It's depending on if you like the story, the notes, that how they develop on your skin, and you're actually willing to pay the money for it.
Okay, I think I don't know if anybody's going to have had this same experience. Maybe Skep has. But is there anything more off-putting than realizing that your girlfriend wears the same perfume as your grandmother?
No, not really.
Because
thing is-
that happened to me.
What? So your grandmother had good taste?
Yeah.
That wasn't the issue. It wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheap perfume at all.
So suddenly memories of Nana coming up in the worst times.
I've been hotboxed inside an elevator with somebody who didn't understand that there's a limit to how much perfume you should really put on. That's always been fun.
Or what I hate the worst, Geodes, is those same people who use it to cover up their bad smell. It's like, dude, or woman, or whoever the hell you are, wash your ass.
Yes.
Just wash it. Keep yourself clean. You won't need to dump a half a bottle of that shit on you, or deodorant or antiperspirant or whatever. And oh man, as somebody who actually has an allergy to some of the additives in perfume, it can be a nightmare when it's overused. Little goes a long way.
Yeah, I've been stuck in an elevator only going up one floor, and when I came off, I basically fell to the ground like coughing because I couldn't breathe because of whoever was in there previously. So.
And it's worse. It's worse than like farts. Like when you get stuck in an elevator where somebody just crop dusted it. It's actually worse because it's like choking up your airways, and like, I've been there, man. Even stuff that I haven't been allergic to, just overuse of just bad scent.
Yes.
This is all very triggering because I'm thinking about all of the bad times I've in my life when people have done stuff like that to me.
To go back to the serious part of it, Sora, is there sort of a clear delineation between unisex and gender fluid, or is it just word evolution, nouveau term for something we've
It does seem to be. So from the quick and dirty research that I've done, it is almost the point that gender fluid is right now, what we see is almost a costuming extreme. So whereas with the start of this unisex coming out of sort of the 60s, well, sort of coming right after the Second World War, after women having to go in wearing factory clothes while they do the work, and then the whole in the high fashion with Yves Saint Laurent and his less smoking for women, so the suddenly women wearing tuxedos, and then it evolved from there, because at the time the idea is boxy cut, power suit of the 80s. Think of that for women, right?
Emulating
there
the
was
male form.
it was a masculinized version of women's clothing to a point where it does kind of hide some of the women's aspects. So from there it evolved to just being androgynous, to the point of concealment, and that's unisex. And then they are, at least Vogue is defining of gender fluid, gender neutral almost, as it's emphasizing the masculinity or femininity of an item. So, and then they use Lil Nas X as one of the examples of like what he wears on the red carpet, or Harry Styles and his more, I guess, feminine leaning fashions. So, which to me, this is why I feel it's almost costumey in a sense, because it's all the examples used tend to be celebrities or celebrity adjacent people who are potentially male, like born male, whether or not that's how they identify, but they were that, wearing very uber feminine clothing. And then that's called gender fluid. Again, quick and dirty, you don't quite see necessarily a lot of, at least not in my quick research, to see a lot of women going the opposite way and like purchasing men's clothing, I guess. I don't know. It's a little bit of a different silhouette for that.
But like, so just to sort of like, unisex is more just pushing towards the center, neutrality, so to speak, and where gender fluid tends to be taking one polar opposite and juxtaposing to to the side.
At least that's what I'm interpreting it as. It could be
just as a broad sort of, okay. I'm understanding that.
But which is why when I first read that, the title of the article, of the original one, and I started reading about, and it's just a fluff piece about how certain, and then they're talking about sellers of perfume and how, depends on the, and then of course they bring out depends on the culture. Well, yeah, there's certain culture, Middle Eastern cultures that they like certain florals more, and that you won't see men from America purchase for themselves. I'm like, okay, so that's not gender neutral, that's not gender fluid, sorry, that's a cultural preference. So what's your point? Where's your point? Where's your point coming from? At the end of the day, it's people purchase scents that they like. Great, that doesn't equal it being, oh, people are pushing the border of gender and expression. So that to me was very annoying. But also, it
is very annoying.
Where's this unisex? Bring it back.
I'm just going to stick with smelling like a tree. I just use bay rum aftershave sometimes, and that's the only intentional. I mean, I don't even necessarily use that for the smell. It just has a smell.
I fully admit I use Axe. But like Sora was saying, yeah, the scent that I use, it's a very, it's deodorant, so it's very mute. I don't use a lot of it, but it also works with my personal body chemistry and the natural musk that I give off, so that it doesn't compete with one another. And it's just, again, just so I don't smell like shit.
Are you guys ready for penis news?
I'm always ready for penis news.
So last week, we had a film that was teaching Skep, when he was a young Skep, the naval officer, how not to pick up brunettes. And I thought that went pretty well. So sticking with the vintage dating theme, we have this article, How to Find Your Man, 10 Pieces of Dating Advice from the 1950s.
Oh, good.
How to find your man, how to win him, how to hold him.
Oh,
I know.
10
nice.
steps to the
What a-
altar.
She doesn't look like that picture I have.
She looks like she
that's
wants to
give me
kill him.
mommy vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There. It'll be okay.
Come rest your head on my bosom.
It looks like, because artists have a really hard time drawing hands, it looks like because of the nails and everything like that, it looks like she wants to claw at him. Like,
Yes, she does.
Well, it starts out with a handy questionnaire to figure out if you're ready to find a guy. Okay, so pay attention, ladies.
Okay.
So it says, are you sure you want to find him? Are you
No,
ready
move
for
on.
him? Are you mentally relaxed? Are you honest with yourself? Can you be honest with him? Are you feminine in appearance? Do you look happy? Can you share? Want a guy who's not quite perfect? That's they call a fixer up, gals. Are you prompt for dates? Is your outfit complimentary to him? Do you want him tailored to fit your idea of Mr. Right? So how'd you do, ladies? Yeah, I mean, this, I'm not actually entirely against the idea of, like, are you really sure you want to put the time and effort into a relationship? That seems like a legitimate question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're not really bad, no.
And I mean, sorry, I have, like, men are attracted to feminine looking women?
Yeah, it says be feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Do you
Mine's
remember
just-
daintiness at all times?
I mean-
Harry, they may have to bring this at least parts of this guide back. I'm just saying.
Can you wear slacks or shorts and still be girlish?
Yes.
And do you avoid them otherwise?
No.
When you're dressing for an evening date, do you avoid mannish suits?
Yes.
Do you always remember that white gloves or a white collar should be spotless? I mean, what's the point? It's just going to get gravy on it anyway. Let me see.
Or Cheeto dust.
Do you take the time to use a drop of perfume to put on a special piece of jewelry, but not too much? Do you watch your
Boy.
posture, never sprawling or slouching? I'm slouching right now. Do you remember not to stride, to walk with a spring that looks like you like to dance? Do you watch the way you use your voice in conversation? This seems like a lot of work.
I haven't been to finishing school. Like, this is asking too much of me.
It seems like a lot. Don't be late. But if he is, try to deal with it. See, I like this. Yeah, you don't be late. But if he's late, try not to be a complete bitch about it. That's what they're saying. Dress to impress. Always good. And follow and memorize these 6 simple rules. Be lovely to look at all times. Have a ready smile. He may see it, even though you haven't noticed him yet. Budget your time.
Don't have a resting bitch face. That's what that
Budget
means.
your times to include your man, whether you've met him yet or not. Yeah, just set that time aside, just so that you're ready. You don't have a scheduling problem. Budget your energy in the same way. Yeah, don't wear yourself out doing non-man things. Just save that energy. When you meet him, charm him with sincerity and your own natural sweetness, accented with care for your appearance and disposition. Wear a lot of makeup, wash constantly, and worry about your neck. Okay.
Whoa.
Wait.
What? Where's the neck coming into this?
says
I
yeah.
was about to say, like, they're not wrong, but that last one, wear a lot of makeup. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, it's the difference in times. Honestly, it's just only difference in times of our societal changes. Like today, it's more about that, and correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, more about that natural look, whether you are not wearing makeup or wearing makeup to look very natural, not really done up most of the time. Obviously, there's still times to
Use the trowel with the pink handle when applying foundation. He is also very obsessed with ladies' necks. A man looks at a horse's teeth to tell his age. He often looks at a woman's neck to see how wrinkled or dried up it is for the same reason.
I mean, the thing is, all the beauty books do say, ladies, don't forget your décolletage
Mm-hmm.
or
a
décolleté,
décolletage?
whichever, and your neck when applying moisturizer or sunscreen.
Yeah.
It's true. It does show your age. That and the tops of your hands.
Tip
I always
number
thought
8,
it was the
say
eye.
yes to everything. I can see how that
That
might
is a
how it might
little
make-
problematic.
how it might make a lady really popular.
I mean, you want a man, so just say yes.
Says
Trust me,
you won't
it'll
find
work.
him by sitting home alone. What can you do? Be available. Try having a yes campaign. Say yes when knock-kneed Susie at the office asks you home to dinner. Her brother, Joe, may be handsome.
Right?
Say yes when boring cousin Kate asks you to a party at her house. It may turn out to be the time when you meet that guy who definitely doesn't bore you. Who the hell are these people? Okay, number 9 is budget
I
your
mean,
energy, which is
not
fine.
number 8 isn't terrible thing. It's basically say, hey, try to be more social. Maybe go out a bit. It's nothing bad.
No, it's
not
actually
bad.
what it sounds like it's dirty because people have dirty minds, but all it really means is just put yourself
sociable.
out there because you never
Yeah.
know what might happen.
hmm
You're not going to meet Mr. Right staying home.
Mm.
So go like sign up
But the
to assist
internet,
with
you're
the with like a bird counting thing for the Audubon Society. Then that's the kind of guy you're going to meet, is a guy who counts birds. Let's see. We'll skip over budget your energy. Get out, do more things, meet more people, which really is just the yes again. What was Serenity?
No, that was me.
Oh,
I
it
was
was
going
you.
to say budget your energy. One sort of like modern addendum I really want to put into that category is don't be an internet thought. Don't waste your energy on that if you're
Unless you're really good
looking-
at it, in which case you'll get gifts.
Too many people thought that they'd be good at it. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Oy vey.
Yeah, so go out more, and then of course there's some pictures here, like the whole thing about femininity. Apparently carrying
Oh.
around a large hat box is another way to look sophisticated.
Oh, so pretty.
I think it's her stance. She's, very
Do you look happy? Because I totally would trust a woman who looked like that all the time,
looks like she wants to eat my soul.
She
And
looks,
laugh while she does it.
she looks like there's not much going on behind the eyes.
She's just shy of like putting on the Harley Quinn makeup. That's what it
Yeah.
looks like to me. So yeah.
That one you just skip in the bathing chute. She says yes to everything.
Yeah. So
She's a
anyway,
good woman.
I do like on the page there, the girl who is too self-sufficient or gives the appearance of being so can drive a guy away. He'll think she's perfectly too capable of taking care of herself and her own problems. No help needed, thank you.
yeah. See, this is just basically pickup artist stuff, but for women in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How to trick a man into thinking that you're a good catch.
Which I mean,
Hell
again,
yeah.
at their core, a lot of these ideas are good ideas. They're just from the 1950s. It's just a different time.
A lot of these, I mean, the main thing is that they're just saying, if this is something you want, make it a goal and then do things that contribute to getting you closer to that goal. Like, get out there and meet people, pay some attention to your appearance. Hygiene is a good thing, those types of things. I mean, that as far as that goes, it's good advice. But there's stuff in here like setting aside basically one day a week where you need to or not for like beauty rituals. Like you should just have ladies just set aside a night, like a whole night where you do nothing but just use moisturizers and things every single week because you've got nothing
Slug
better
it.
to do.
You
Yeah,
gotta slug it. You gotta slug it.
Wash your ass.
yeah. Anyway, Geodes is going to put the link to this in the chat. So if anybody's
Yes.
interested in, if you have a time machine and you want to find a man in the 1950s, this will help you out.
It's funny when I was working at the magazine that this is a lot of the stuff that I was working with.
Yeah, here's beauty night. Beauty night is everything from shaving to teasing your hair and doing stuff and things. I'm so glad that I'm not a woman in the 1950s. This just looks like a lot of work.
There was actually a lot of ways that they made things a lot simpler and a lot faster. Women would often get their hair permed in the style that they were
Mhm.
recommended.
Mhm.
And thus all they had to do was make sure they just kind of protected it. Most moisturizers didn't take very long. Nail salons didn't take very long. This is stuff that when you look at it, it looks like a lot, but when you consider most is like maybe like eyebrows, unless you've got really bad eyebrows, maybe takes 10 to 15 seconds.
Weekly clean and polish shoes. Weekly weigh-in. Yeah.
Okay, most women took those to the
Extreme.
I wanted to call it cobbler, but that's not the right. But they took them to like a lot of this stuff was stuff they didn't do themselves.
Take extra special bath. Okay.
That's the bubble bath.
With
Yeah,
the
take the bubble
you put milk, bath milk in it to make your skin all soft.
Yep. You gotta make sure the hair is set before you do that.
Women are just a mystery.
Women have been.
Or not, but sure.
Or you say it's Skep.
Oh, nothing.
No, I'm curious.
Well, women have an advantage when it comes to shining shoes. Anybody know what it is?
No.
They're already in the right position.
No. They wear pantyhose.
Oh yeah.
When you first get to OCS, and this is really one of the first things, it happens like within the first day that you arrive. You're at, which starts Hell Week, by the way. Hell Week starts when you get there. They teach you how to shine shoes, and they tell you each male battalion. There are 2 male battalions for each female battalion for when I was there, and that's roughly the way that OCS is structured now. They said get with the females and get them to give you some of their used pantyhoses so that you can pass inspection, because pantyhose shine buff shoes so well, so shiny. That's the only way you can get them to inspection standard.
Oh wow! Cool.
You have to use it, and you just get one and you're done. They last forever. I mean, and they don't lose their ability to make your shoes absolutely perfect. But particularly in Hell Week, when your inspection stuff has to be just everything has to be absolutely dead solid perfect. You learn that pantyhose are an absolutely indispensable aid to getting your shoes to shine. Just share that unusual bit of trivia.
No, that was one of the. I should have remembered that. It was one of the things I got from my grandfather. Is he had this amazing collection of stuff for keeping shoes shined, because you can always tell a military guy they never really get out of certain habits going forward.
I still shine my shoes.
And it's like I basically inherited his Johnston and Murphy's, and I can assure you there's a fine shine on those shoes, because I maintain them the way he taught me to do it. There really isn't a shortcut. They get the kiwi wax stuff, and they say, oh, just use this sponge applicator and it'll dry and give you a high shine. No, it won't.
And you have to do the 2-step process. You have to.
You have the special tin, the one that has like the key that you have to pop it off, and then you've got like the neutral cream wax thing, and you have to. You have that one dirty cloth that never gets washed.
we didn't put the wax coat on top, but we did do the 2 coats of shoe polish. And but I'll tell you, and the first time you see it, you absolutely won't believe your eyes what a pair of nylons does to a leather shoe that's been prepared and shined properly. The shine, the reflection is so amazing. You can actually make out features on your face in the reflection of your shoes, of black shoes. I was in the Black Shoe Navy.
There's a demonstration of how to shine boots that was James May and somebody else. I think it was for James May's Man Lab. I will try to dig that up and give it to you guys next week. I don't think I can find it before the show's up. But one of the pieces of advice from the I think he was like a Special Forces guy, to James May was, don't be weak, because he was like complaining about how much work it was. He's like, just don't be weak. Yeah. That's the key to shining shoes. Just don't be weak. He's right. It actually is one of those things that just takes a lot of effort.
Well, there's all right. I'm just going to share one other small bit of trivia with you. There are 2 kinds of people in the world. Basically, there are 2 kinds of saliva actually in the world, and it's genetic. You either have a certain enzyme in a certain concentration in your saliva or you don't. If you have that enzyme, you can shine shoes without using water. You can use your spit. You literally can spit shine your shoes. If you don't, and you don't know somebody who has it, you can do almost as good a job with water. But that enzyme is really the key to having a what they called a 3.0. They graded your inspection to have 3.0 shoes. You had to have shined with some of that kind of spit. My roommate had that spit. I did not. And you find this out the first time you shine shoes. You say, hey, my shoes are dull. Yeah, you don't have the right kind of spit. Use water, it'll improve it. But I used Dan's, my SEAL team roommate's spit. I used his spit so my shoes would be amazing. And I all through OCS, I wet my hands with my roommate's spit. Just to make my shoes amazing.
Hey, got you through Hell Week plus the rest of OCS. So.
I was wearing those shoes when I was selected for battalion rank.
Nice.
So, yeah, there was some excellence there.
Well, that's the zoo for tonight, folks. We covered a lot of ground, and actually, I did a terrible job of planning the show because we went so long on multiple topics about a third of what we were going to talk about we never even got to. But it'll be back next week, just as fresh as it was today. Anybody have any final thoughts before we bugger off for the night?
You guys have homework assignment tonight. 2 things. 1, get pantyhose and a black leather shoe and see how that works. And then check if you have the spit enzyme.
That's it. Shine it with that. And if it shines better with water, you'll know you don't have that enzyme. So try it both ways.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody?
Don't overdo the perfume.
Yes. Just because you feel pretty doesn't mean,
I feel
don't confuse body splash with perfume. And with that, the zoo's closed. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.